Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and our guest is Marion head coach Kerry Martin. And Coach, we were just here just a few months ago.
Yeah, this is the shortest amount of time between seasons we've ever experienced.
Right after the longest amount of time between seasons.
Good point. So it all evens out, I guess, right?
So it's football time. The Wildcats open this Saturday night with a game. We'll talk about that game in just a minute. But I guess first of all, let's kind of talk about what's kind of caused all this. And a lot of people know the COVID pandemic, and it canceled the fall season.
Right.
Put football in the spring. You had a short season in the spring. Now you're back to regular football, or we hope so anyway. But how have the kids adjusted to the alteration in schedule, the long layoff and the short layoff and things like that?
Kids are more resilient than you think. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about coaching is when you get those, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but kids surprise you. I mean, they can surprise you with some behavioral stuff and off the field stuff sometimes, but in many cases the surprises are the positive side. And I think, watching our kids adjust to last year's cancellation of fall and adjusting to fall contact days and winter contact days and spring football was really cool to watch. I mean, they just got in line and just got it done. We had a short summer, as you know, and a short break, and had to adjust our summer schedule. Kids have handled everything we've asked them to do really, really well. I've talked to a lot of coaches, and I feel like they feel the same way. The kids have really adjusted to whatever demands have been placed on them by the pandemic, and I'm just real proud of how they've done that and how resilient they've been.
We'll get this part out of the way. 2 games this weekend have already been canceled because of COVID. Redbud at Pinckneyville, Johnson City at Edwards County, because students in Pinckneyville and Edwards County have tested positive. So that is obviously on the radar for other schools to keep an eye out for. What are some of the things that are happening here at Marion to help kind of keep that under control?
Well, we're following the protocols of masking up when we're inside during a film session or something. We keep our meetings inside very, very short. We social distance. Football is very difficult to socially distance on the field, but we are outdoors and we try to keep kids from congregating. But I think a lot of luck involved in this. We're probably all lucky we're not at some point in time had an issue with this. We've had some minor issues, nothing major yet. But of course, I told you before we came on air that I feel like every program's a bit of a ticking time bomb. That you feel like you're going to get that call from the athletic director or someone saying, we're in trouble. So I think knowing that ahead of time, we're kind of mentally prepared for it. Not that we would in any way like it or welcome it, but we know that we appreciate every day we get together. We appreciate every practice together. We appreciate every game we get, because we know there's no guarantee after the cancellation of an entire season and being shut down ourselves in the summer 2 years ago. I think we just appreciate the time we have together more than ever, because we know it's not guaranteed.
Let's talk about this year's team, and if you can avoid things like having a bunch of people together to create an exposure issue, I think this team for the most part is built to withstand. If you lose a few players here and there, there's a lot of depth, and I got a chance to look at the roster earlier today, and I mean, almost every name on that roster is a name you remember from last year. And we talked about not very many seniors, but I didn't realize how impactful that was until I looked at this year's roster.
Yeah. I mean, and so that depth is valuable during this time. But of course, COVID and quarantines and outbreaks, depending on the position, is the concern. If your quarterback position gets hit, even 2 guys deep, you're in trouble. But we do have more depth than we've had in a while, so that's a good thing. But depth, I mean returning players, experienced players that we feel like can contribute if they had to step in a role. So that's a good thing. But we're trying to remain very cautiously optimistic we can get through this. But there's no guarantees. But we do have a lot of experience. We have a lot of guys that you can tell the difference between spring and fall, that they've taken another step, they've elevated their game. And a lot of that's maturity, some of it's confidence, some of it's experience, maybe all of the above.
Let's talk about the offense. And, of course, the big question is, how do you replace Hunter Simmons? Difficult to do, but you've got three guys who are seeing reps at quarterback right now. All three have a different set of skills, and they're very interesting. Evan Noley, the return of Ray Bardo to football, and then Brody Larson, who saw some experience, got some experience last year in certain situations. So, I mean, that to me, from the outside looking in, opens up the playbook.
It does, and the answer to your question, how do you replace Hunter Simmons? You don't. So, and that's, we've been in that situation before. We've graduated some really good quarterbacks, and if you're out there trying to replace the guy you lost, you're in trouble, because that skill set of Hunter Simmons was extremely unique. And that's not to downplay the quarterbacks we've got, because they've got unique skill sets themselves. My wife asked me just yesterday to describe who are they like, and I said, I got to be honest, they're just like them. They're not really like anybody else. Evan Noley is a really, really good spread quarterback. He's a good decision maker. His technique has become super good, which I think has really elevated his game. I've loved his decision making. I've loved his dedication. He's put himself in a situation to be the starter. Ray Bardo has come back out since playing in junior high, and he's a very talented young man, as you know, in track and basketball. He's a spread quarterback, but he's got this running ability that's really good, which you saw in the blue gold game, and he can go to a different level in that. And then Brody Larson played quite a bit in our tight offense last year, and he'll be primarily in that tight set this year as our tight quarterback. He's a good runner, play action passer. So you're right, they each bring something unique to the table, and we're excited to see what they can do. So that was the big concern by everybody coming in, and those three guys have done a good job of kind of easing some of that concern, because they've consistently looked pretty good in practice. They're getting better every day.
Evan didn't get too many passes last year, but I was impressed in the blue gold game with the way he threw the ball. He had some really good throws.
He did. And the good thing is it wasn't a one-night thing. He's been doing it in practice. He did it again in practice yesterday. And the kids, I think, have really developed confidence in him. But I hear a lot of compliments, even when we're doing a drill called Routes on Air, where all the quarterbacks are throwing, and Ray will be dropping some, what we call dropping dimes. And Evan makes some nice throws, and the kids are very complimentary. I think everybody came in eyeing that quarterback position, because last year we had Hunter, and of course there were so many good balls thrown every day, every drill. And there was a little skepticism coming in, obviously, from everybody. Can we stay at a certain level without Hunter Simmons? And I think just from the beginning of the summer, they've proven that we should be okay at that position. They're going to do a really good job for us, and they're just coming into their own right now.
One of the reasons that Hunter was so good, obviously he was very skilled, but had a lot of good guys to throw to.
Sure.
And so now Vincent Newsom, Mason Gooch, Jake Bruce, Walker Fox. You've got these guys, and then all your backs out of the backfield who caught balls. 12 or 13 guys caught balls last year. Almost all of them are back this year.
Yeah, the big one we're missing is Chase Isbell. That was he probably was in that group of guys that caught passes out of the backfield, but most everybody else is back, and so I think we talked to those receivers that last year they were all juniors and sophomores, including Tommy Wiseman, and we said Hunter kind of carried them until they elevated their game last year and caught up, and then they became really good receivers with Hunter. And I think to some extent they're going to have to elevate their game and elevate Evan's game and Ray's game and Brody's game, because I think they've got a chance now that they're the ones with the experience. They're the experienced route runners. They're the ones that can help elevate a young quarterback and make things a little better on its side. So the passing game, I think, has a good combination of quarterbacks that have worked really hard to catch up, and receivers that are coming back with a lot of experience.
Is it going to help that because those guys caught so many passes last year, and now you've got an inexperienced quarterback or relatively inexperienced quarterback, that whoever it is going to feel comfortable throwing to anybody because they did so well last year?
Yeah, we didn't mention Tyler Sema and a couple others. So there's a lot of people to throw to, and I think when I watch Evan the great thing, and Hunter did this too, they're not looking for one person. They're not looking at, well, I've got to get it to Mason here because he's the guy that can. They can all make the catch. We've seen Talon Hance and Bryson Burgess step up this year, and I said Jackson Lawrence is a junior who stepped up and is playing some. So we're adding some other players to the mix. In the backfield, Patrick Walker and Jordan Beverly, they're both sophomores and have both looked really good in our backfield. Cole Bundren and Lucas Lanier have elevated their game in the offseason and looked really good Friday night. So it isn't just that we graduated some good players, but we've got some good guys back, but I think we've got some young guys that are stepping into the mix also.
You mentioned guys like Lucas Lanier and Tommy Wiseman and Cole Bundren.
Yeah.
Your running game, Lucas Schrum and Devin Markham are obviously going to be key. And,
right.
And, that's two different styles of runner.
Very much so.
It gives you more, variety of things you can do. And, when you have a guy like Devin, you can give him the ball and, he's pretty much good for 3 or 4 yards because of the way he runs. And, and then, Lucas, Tommy, all those guys have breakaway speed.
Yeah, add Patrick Walker's speed into that, and then you throw in Jordan Beverly, who is probably the best combination of all of them. He's 200 and some pounds, but he's also fast. So we got some outside runners and some inside runners, and then we got a couple of guys like Jordan that he's pretty good doing both. So we feel like the running game has some of that depth you talked about earlier. I love the unselfishness. They're blocking for each other. They're catching the ball out of the backfield. And the guys that are coming back have really taken another step, and that's what you need to see. Our motto this year is earn it, because what we didn't want was a 6-0 undefeated spring for anyone to think that that's going to carry over to the fall in some way just because that we have to go out and re-earn our success again, just like every other class. And I feel like the kids have been aware of that and have done that. And so with our defensive returners and this combination of offensive guys, we are optimistic that we have a chance to have a really good season. He's
going to get a lot of press and a lot of recognition, but I saw a couple of plays, back-to-back plays, that stood out to me with Vince. You ran a play down near the goal line to him in the end zone, being covered by Ray Bardo, who is a pretty good defensive back.
Yeah, getting better every day, yeah.
And Vince made the catch for a touchdown, but it was called back because of an illegal formation.
Right.
Or some kind of a penalty. So you ran a very similar play on the next play, same pairing, and he created the separation and made the catch again. How good can Vincent Newsom be? Yeah, that's a great question. And he has a chance to be maybe the best receiver that's ever played here. Jaden Lacey certainly is in that I'll tell you
discussion.
That when we talked to Jaden a few years ago and we were talking about him, he said there's a guy coming up, watch out for him. He was referring to Vincent. So.
Yeah, I know that Jaden always said that Vince is going to be the better player. And Vince is knocking on the door of some records, and I think he's got a chance to get his name in that record book for the school. And even with the shortened junior year, which is a shame because if he'd have got 4 or 5 more games, look out. But certainly he is, and what I like about Vince is he plays defense for us. He's become a complete football player. He's blocking well. He never complains if the ball's going to other people because he's getting maybe double coverage or whatever. And he understands that when you're kind of the go-to guy in some people's minds, that you're opening up for Mason Gooch and Jake Bruce and other guys to get open. So really unselfish, but he can be special. Those one-on-ones that we get with him are one-on-ones that he can win.
We talked about the defensive line Friday night after the scrimmage. I'll get to them in a minute, but again, looking over the roster, and I see guys on the offensive line that are back. You've got some returning players.
We do,
and some good size.
Yeah, we got decent size. We got a little toughness in there, I think, some little ornery, which is good. We got a couple of D tackles that have been moved over to the offensive side, and they've embraced that, and they've been really good. We've got a new center, which replacing Reese Roper is big shoes to fill because he was a really good captain up there in the front line, making a lot of decisions.
Well, being one of the top students in the class, he was pretty smart with what he did.
Very smart, and Eli Vickery has stepped in and done a good job there, and we returned Jackson White, and we returned Garrett Berenson, and so we have some returning guys, we have some new guys, some new faces. But yeah, that offensive line will be key, giving our quarterbacks time and opening up some holes for our running. We say all the time, we had this misnomer. We sometimes call the receivers and running backs the skill players, and we tease our linemen and say, you guys are the most skilled, because you can have great backs and you can have great receivers, but if your line is bad, no one will notice. No one will see the ball in the air. No one will see the holes open up. So, we are happy to have a good line up front. Coach Skeet's done a great job with them, and I think they'll have a good season.
I wanted to point this out. I go back to the first time Marion played in the quarterfinal, the most recent. I got to word this right. The first time in your run that they played in the quarterfinal, the game up at Metamora, and I looked at the roster. There were 5 kids 200 pounds or more, and one of them was your quarterback.
Yeah.
And I look at the roster this time, and maybe a third of the roster is 200 pounds. Some quote unquote skill position players are 200 pounds.
Yeah.
What's been the shift? I mean, is this the bigger kids seeing the success and buying in? Is it work in the weight room? What's translated into the addition of the size?
Yeah, I think things go in cycles. We at least they do here. We didn't have a lot of size in 5, 6, or 7, and then we developed some size. If you think back to season 9 and 10, we had Cam Harrell, Lavelle Simon, Griffith, and Dixon.
Right,
and
that huge offensive
Tyler
line.
Bowles.
Right.
We were big. Patrick Clark. So that size lasted for a couple of years, and then we got a little smaller again, and then we got a little bit bigger. We had R.J. Manfredo and some others a little bit later, but this is the biggest team since the 9 and 10 seasons, where more guys are. And I don't mean overweight big. I mean big, like football size, athletic size, big. And I got a couple of guys above 275, 280, a couple knocking on 300 pounds, but they can move. So it's nice to not have to battle that idea that we're just going to get shoved around if the mismatch again is wrong, because we got some guys that can shove back now, and they're very athletic. So
the mismatch is going to be in your favor a lot of times.
I hope so, because we haven't had that a lot here. We've not been, overall, one of the shocking things about taking this job in 2002 was we've not been as physically big as, just natural size, as I thought Marion would be. I had some Carterville teams that size-wise matched up with some of the Marion teams we've had, but now we're seeing what I thought I would see when I got here. And it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of come in waves, different seasons. But right now we're kind of going through a run of bigger guys, so it affects your uniform sizes. It affects how you order everything you order, because for a while everything was small to fit our players. And now the bigger guys come along and the uniforms don't fit.
So you got to order new ones.
Because that number 52 that fit a 190-pound guard, now a 275-pound guard needs that number. So it's been a challenge, needless to say. So it's a good problem.
Yeah,
it's a good problem.
Let's talk about the defense. And we spent some time after the scrimmage talking about the defensive line, because there's so many kids coming back. But again, you got kids back in the secondary. You got linebackers coming back. I think you said there's 9 defensive starters back from last year's team.
I think Jonas McNeely and Ryan Fox, Jonas McNeely, and let's see.
Did Chase play in the defensive backfield?
Not very much. I think that when you're talking about the D-line linebackers, that's the only 2 we lost. And Quentin Anthony was the defensive back that we lost. I misspoke. We lost 3 starters on defense because Q was in the secondary. So those 3 had really good years for us. Really good years. So it's not just always the number, but it's who you replace. And so Q was our cover guy. Ryan Fox was kind of right there in the middle of the defense, and Jonas just had an off-the-chart senior year after really just being a scout team player his junior year. He's one of our great success stories. So, we got to replace those 3 guys, but we got a lot back. And some of the guys replacing them played kind of in other places. So Walker Fox now will see some time in the secondary, which he did last year. Ray showing up now as a senior may see some corner time where Quentin was. So, and we're cycling. We have a whole group of D linemen we're rotating to keep them fresh. And if the temperature stays in the 90s, like it looks like it may, keeping guys fresh on defense will be a big deal.
You feel like especially bringing in a new quarterback to guide the offense, that there's maybe a little extra pressure on the defense to help keep this team close enough for your offense to, especially early in the season?
Yeah, I think, how many points we score is an unknown. Where last year, beginning with week 1, it became a known that it looked like we were going to have the potential to put a lot of points on the board. And sometimes that can give your defense a false sense of security. I mean, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan, I'm embarrassed to say, but when Dan Marino was the quarterback and they were scoring points, the defense, I felt, oftentimes lacked a sense of urgency because it's okay, we'll score 50,
Right.
So I think that's a great point. I think people don't, maybe outside the football world, don't understand that that defense needs that sense of urgency, that every drive matters, every stop matters, every turnover matters, because there's no guarantee we're going to put up the kind of points we put up last year with Hunter. We may be averaging 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns a game, especially early as we get our legs under us. I hope that's not the case, but that's a possibility. You never know. And it also depends on how good the defenses are we see this year. We didn't see Jerseyville last year. We didn't see Highland last year. Koke's got a new coach. That's an unknown. So there's a lot of things that you don't want to rest on what happened before. You're right. I think our defense, if they can play well and keep the opponent's score down, that could be big for this football team.
Week 1, Herrin Tigers.
Yeah.
It's been several years coming. That series was interrupted for several years, and now it's back. Talk about what can we expect when Marion and Herrin get together.
We played from the time I got here in 2002. I think it was 2011. I think our last year. So you take 2002 to 2011. I had one of my coaches say this yesterday. Only 2 of the games in that span were by more than a couple of touchdowns. They beat us bad in 2004, and we beat them kind of bad in 2006. Outside of that, every game was really close. So I don't think the records matter. I don't think the returning starters. I told my kids this in film yesterday. Number of returning starters, record last year, all that stuff. In rivalry games, a lot of times that doesn't matter. I sit and watch Carbondale Murphy for years, and there's supposed to be a favorite in the game, and the game ends up really tight. So, I mean, I'm a Salem Centralia byproduct rivalry, and over again, our games were every year close, regardless of who was supposed to be the better team. So I think that's the big thing we have to be concerned about is, rivalry games will be closer than you expect because they will play with extra incentive. Their fan base wants it. They're excited. They're going to feel that. They're going to be stoked. And we have to make sure we match that. And because I expect a close ball game.
Do you feel any added pressure in the fact that it's Saturday night? It's like the only game, so it's the spotlight game for all of Southern Illinois?
We actually wanted that. We wanted that. We want that atmosphere. We want that excitement. I want my players to play in front of that, get used to it, play in it, enjoy it, embrace it. Let that anxiety, let that nervousness motivate you for that encounter. I mean, life is so short, and I just feel like when you get a chance to play in a marquee game and a big game, that's what it's all about. High school football is not a very long career. COVID could shorten anything you do. So I'm excited about playing on a big stage on Saturday against a rival team and a good program and a very historic program. They've had a lot of great football teams in Herrin over the years, so that adds to it.
How much difference is it, you think, playing in week 1 compared to week 9? Because that's when it used to be.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I really don't know. I just, obviously we have longer to prepare for each other. But we also know less about each other than probably ever before. We only know what we hear. We've not seen them. They have a new coach. They have a lot of new players. They probably got more insight into us because of, the coaching staff has remained intact and we have a lot of guys back. So obviously we're not changing a whole lot of what we do, but we're kind of a little bit blind. But I think week 1 traditionally you are a little bit blind, and I think week 1 comes down to you doing what you do and do it well and don't make mistakes. I think more teams beat themselves in week 1 than they get beat by their opponent. So we're going to try to make sure that if we lose Saturday, we lose because Herrin's a better team, not because we made too many mistakes.
I want to ask this question, and then we run a little probably running a little long, so I'm a little concerned about that. But as we look at the schedule, you have Jerseyville, you have Highland, you have Althoff all at home. Cahokia is your only really long road trip. The next one after that is Mount Vernon and then Carbondale. So the first time in a long time that the Wildcats have not played 2 or 3 or even 4 games that were more than 2 hours away.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, we've kind of gotten used to road trips. We don't. I can't tell you the last time we looked at the schedule and saw a long road trip and had a worry or a concern. It became what we did. So that's a good thing. We kind of got used to that. We acclimated to it out of necessity. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool. What I love most about it, Tim, is we're traveling less. That's good for our families. It's good for our fans. It's good for the media. Can't forget the media guys.
Yeah, we thank you for
so,
that.
Yeah, so Ryan Godisky has a lot to do with that, of getting that schedule back to some semblance of normalcy, we'll say, because we're not traveling to Haywood County, Tennessee, or Galesburg, or Normandy and St. Louis, or someplace. We're playing fairly local, and that's a good thing.
All right. Marion and Herrin, Saturday night, 7 o'clock in Herrin. That's Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.